Good morning to everyone watching. So this is the fifth session of the ATUL 2021, so welcome all. This session will be dedicated to open knowledge and open science themes, and we will have three presentations. We will have three presenters, of course. The first one will be Katie Wilson, then Manfredi Lamana, and Tatiana Sanchez. We will have 15 minutes for each and a few minutes for questions in between. But at the end, if we have time, you can pose your questions using the Q&A button, and we can then speak for a while if you have any questions at the end. So starting off, Katie Wilson. She's going to present universities as open knowledge institutions, vital for research sharing. I'm going to read this short bio from Katie. Katie Wilson is a research fellow with the Curtin Open Knowledge Initiative project from the Faculty of Humanities of Curtin University, where she researches open knowledge institutions, open access, diversity, equity, and inclusion in research production and output, and access to libraries. Her doctoral research is in Indigenous education, and she has held previous research positions in universities and academic libraries in Australia and New Zealand. So, Katie, you can share your presentation.
Thank you.
Ken?
Okay, can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Susanna. It's wonderful to be here at IATUL. I would love to be with you all in Porto, but I'm speaking to you from Wellington, New Zealand. And I'm presenting this on behalf of the Curtin Open Knowledge Initiative project team. So in addition to myself, there's Lucy Montgomery, Cameron Neylon, Rebecca Handcock, Richard Hosking, Karl, Huang, Alkim, Ozaygen, and Aniek, Roelofs. I'd also like to acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people on whose unceded lands Curtin University is located in Perth in Western Australia. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about the COKI Curtin Open Knowledge Project, and then I'm going to talk about the state of open research under COVID-19. So our project is a strategic critical research project that's located within the Faculty of Humanities and the Curtin Institute of Computation. So we have an interdisciplinary team with data scientists, statisticians, and critical scholars. And we analyze research data about institutional research output in terms of open access, performance, collaborations, citations, publisher, and funders. We also look at diversity in workforces and in geographic coverage. So the map on the right there shows the countries where the institutions in the countries that we focus on, just some of those countries. So COKI grew from a critique of the limited bibliometric measures and the underlying assumptions of world university rankings. Their reliance on major commercial bibliographic sources, which are often predominantly in English language, and publication sources that exclude research from other parts of the world. We use multiple open sources to provide bibliographic open access, affiliation, and citation data. And working on a large scale, we've built a data set of institutional data from institutions from 192 countries. And we use cloud-based storage to maintain the data set. And we analyze the data, and this enables us to provide a range of perspectives and narratives of scholarly research output by institutions, countries, funders, publishers, and consortia. The goal of the project is to facilitate dialogue within institutions and higher education authorities and researchers to open to new ways of thinking about research impact, to question and challenge the current thinking and to value openness in output and research production as a driving force to open global knowledge. And to help us do this, we developed interactive visual tools to help institutions to understand their performances as open knowledge universities. So in the dashboards are built on the COKI dataset, and they bring together analysis of research outperformance. These allow us to have ongoing conversations with academic libraries to develop the project ideas and feedback and testing. And the dashboards, we found that there's so much data and analysis that we found that using the dashboards really have facilitated understanding of the bibliometric and scientometric data. So in that way, reducing the cognitive load around this complex data. And we were able to reach a range of stakeholders, including researchers, academics, and senior executives in institutions. This is just one example of a dashboard. So we've brought together here information about Curtin University's research output. So for on the left side here, under summary metrics for the 20 years up until 2020, we summarize the outputs, publishers, citations, and funders. And then we analyze the open access, how much of this is open. So for 2020, we have around about 40% open access material. Some of that, about 29%, is via repositories or green open access. Then 26% is via publishers or gold open access, with 6.7 via open access via hybrid journals. So open and published in a paywall journal with a fee. From here, we can link to other dashboards for such things such as more detail on publishers, performance, collaborations, Curtin University collaborations, breakdown by disciplines, and looking at also at funders. This is an example of from the collaboration dashboard. So on the left-hand side over here, the bar graph shows the universities in Australia that Curtin, or the institutions actually, including not just universities, but research institutions with whom Curtin University collaborates. And on the right-hand side is the map of the world showing all the global collaboration. So each dot here represents an institution. And from here, we can dig down and look in more detail at one of the regions. For example, if we go to North America, we can look in more detail at the Curtin University collaborations with North America over the 20 years. And then we can also see over here on the right the top 8 collaborators. We can also change the time, so we can look at it for a period of years, the last 2 years, the last 5 years, or the last 10 years. COKI also has 2 public dashboards. The first one is the open access dashboard by country. And here, for example, this is Australia. We show this Australian research output for the last 20 years. So the grey bar at the top is not open and the orange is open. So we can see the growth over the years, a slight drop off in 2020, and that reflects the embargoes that a lot of publishers place on material before it can be deposited in a repository. We also break down the open access again into gold, green, hybrid, and bronze, which bronze is if it's published in an open journal but has no license for reuse specified. The second public dashboard is research funder. So we pull this information from acknowledgements and publications, and we can break down, analyze the funders by country. So this is, for example, this is Portugal. So in the pie chart here, we can show we've grouped together funders by country, and we can show which countries are the major funders for Portugal. So, of course, the Portuguese Republic, European Union, Spain, United States, Brazil, and United Kingdom are the major ones there. Again, they're shown over here on the right, so we can see just for the last 5 years. And then we can break that down further into individual to show the individual funders and how many publications acknowledge those funders. And this actually, when you download this information, we find that there are 2,164 separate funders acknowledged. So we also look at diversity in research, and the focus of this is diversity is a key element of open knowledge. So the more diverse a workforce, then we have greater diversity in research production, teaching, and administration. So to understand this, we analyze publicly available demographic statistics about university workforces, so that to enable institutions to understand the diversity within their workforces. We focus mostly on gender, origin, and disability. It really depends on the data that is made available publicly. Gender is pretty well commonly available amongst all countries, so we can get a breakdown mostly just by the binary gender, so women and men. We also analyze origin information, which includes ethnicity, race, nationality, citizenship, indigeneity, and information about minority populations. So we find that this information can help us look at how equity and diversity and inclusion policies that are available, that are in place in many institutions, how in fact they are addressing the systemic biases within institutions by looking at the outcomes and the outcomes that the analysis provides. So, for example, here we have the UK analysis of women and men in institutions. So we find that on the left-hand side, percentages of women academics, those that are over 50% are mostly in the universities that are in the groupings of the Million Plus and Alliance, and the institutions that have women generally who are below 50% academic women are in the Russell grouping, which is the older, more established research intensive universities, and perhaps with more male-dominated STEM disciplines. So the next part of the talk is about COVID-19 and open knowledge, and with COVID, we've suddenly knowledge has become open. Some research, so it's showing us the importance of open knowledge. It also indicates, the shortcomings of the existing publishing system, and we're moving really from a situation of publish or perish to share or perish. So what happened is in January 2020, preprints began early sharing of COVID research through the archives, bioRxiv, medRxiv, and arXiv. And then the Wellcome Trust in the UK sent out a request to journals, researchers, and publishers to make open their COVID research. And so suddenly a lot of research was open, and this led to quite a big, what's been called a discoverability crisis. There was so much information, how to find it. And then that in turn led to a lot of research databases and knowledge maps and resource hubs in order to find the information. We also see some sort of geopolitical tensions. So who's collaborating with who? The countries, wealthier countries, and those with more impact from COVID were producing more research initially. And also in the beginning, China and the United States were collaborating, but this is reduced mainly because of restrictions and scrutiny on the collaboration that on both sides of both China and the United States. And so this is what Lee and Haupt called science nationalism versus science globalism. And we can see that China and the US, according to our analysis, both have very high ratios of domestic funding compared to international funding, and also reasonably lower open access outputs. So where are we with COVID? How long will this information stay open? At the moment, about 72% of COVID-19 related publications are still open. This is according to the Dimensions database. But how long will this last, and to what extent? So research around HIV/AIDS, which is still a pandemic or an epidemic in some countries, is now only 27.5% of that is open. So there's a lot of interest now in just what has been the impact of opening this research and data, and how will it change thinking and practices around open knowledge? A lot of questions there. And also, what impacts are there going to be on academic work practices? Already we're seeing, in early research, we're seeing the impact on research productivity for women and minorities and early career researchers. Will we really emerge from the crisis with a greater sense of the inequality that surrounds us and a greater commitment to working towards justice? So we're seeing that it's already starting to slow down. People saying that they can't get through, they're hitting paywalls for vaccine trials, COVID vaccine trials. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So just very briefly, the COKI project has started analysing, and we've developed a dashboard, a COVID-19 dashboard, just to have a look at some of the impacts on the openness and just what's happening. This is pretty much just a preliminary dashboard, but we can see here, this is material, this is based on data provided by the Dimensions COVID data set, and it is items that have DOIs. So we're showing the number of publications with DOIs recorded and the number of those that are open. On the left-hand side here, we can see it's a breakdown of open, which is orange, and black, which is not open. There is the grey in the middle here is we don't have an open access status for that. So there is while there is a lot that is open, there is some that we don't know the status of yet. I haven't been able to determine that. And then we break that down, and we just show here that almost 50% of the output is in journal articles, followed by posted content that refers to preprints, book chapters and books. So those are the major output types. And over here on the right, we also break down the open access overall into so it's about 44% open, 23% closed, and then there's about 33% that we don't have the status of yet. And of the open, about 24% of that is green, open via repositories, and 12% is open via a publisher. It's a gold open access. And the last graph on the bottom right breaks down the 2 years, so 2020 versus 21. And very interesting to see that the black bar graph there is the total publications, the orange is how much of that is open. So for 2020, 97% of the 2020 publications are open, whereas in 2021, it's a much smaller percentage so far. About 25% of the total output is open.
Katie, you have 1 more minute.
Thank you. I'm nearly finished. So that's really the end. I just wanted to show, if you wanted to find some more information about our project, here are some links to some of our publications and recent work. And also we have a book that is coming out very soon, next month, Open Knowledge Institutions, Reinventing Universities. This book was written collaboratively by 13 authors as a book sprint. We wrote it in 5 days. And we've now revised, that was a few years ago, we've now revised it. So this will be the revised edition, and of course it will be open access, but you can also purchase it. It will be a paperback. And yeah, that will be available in August. And that's it. Thank you for attending.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions for you, Katie. One question and a comment. I don't know if you want to answer them now.
Sure, if we have time. Do we have time? We don't have time?
We don't have that much time, but if we answer it now, we don't have to answer them at the end, so maybe we can compensate. So it's just one question from Shioban. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm saying the name correctly. So are your classifications of green, gold, etc. exclusive? Example, if I have a copy of a gold journal and my institutional repository, does it count towards both categories or just one?
Yes, very, very good question. We try to be exclusive, but sometimes it's not always possible, because sometimes, you know, a copy in an institutional repository may have a slightly different title than a finally published copy. So as much as possible, we do try to, but I think I wouldn't say it's 100%. Thanks, Siobhan.
Okay. So no more questions. Maybe at the end, we could go to the next presentation, and it's going to be Manfredi. Okay. Manfredi, is going to talk about university libraries as active agents for change, the BitViews Project, how to turn all journals green and clear the path to open science. So Manfredi Lamana is a reader in economics at University of St. Andrews with a long-standing interest in open access. He was one of the 16 signatories of the Budapest Open Access Initiative. Currently, he is the director of the BitViews Project, an initiative to achieve immediate and universal green open access through an innovative use of incentives and blockchain technology. A microeconomist with several publications in top-ranked economics journals, he has also published articles on scholarly communication and has presented papers on open access to several international librarianship conferences. So Manfredi, you can start your presentation. I know we are going to see a recorded presentation. I hope that it starts soon. Okay, it is. We are not listening yet. Can the sound be higher, please? The sound is a bit low still.
This is less of a traditional conference presentation, more of a direct appeal to you.
Can you hear it?
Individually and personally.
It's very faint.
Yes, it's very, very low. We cannot hear it correctly.
Access and open access is the precondition of open science, and if there is anything, is how important open access is for the development of humanity. Now, after 20 years of attempts, it is fair to say that open access is definitely stagnating. There is plenty of evidence to that effect. Very important. Let me be precise what I mean by open access. In fact, what was meant by most, if not all, of the signatories of the Indigenous Initiative. By open access, I mean the unfettered, free access to the content of peer-reviewed research. I want to stress the word content because it will become very important in what follows. The fact that we have to take on board is that most researchers do not care about open access in their publishing behavior. For almost every discipline, what matters is the journals you publish in and the citations you the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Look at the amount of peer-reviewed research that is voluntarily deposited in institutional repositories by academics, and it's very small. Only if they are forced to do so, as if in the REF mandate in the UK or in the proposals for Plan S, for example. So clearly, individual researchers and authors have no incentive whatsoever of depositing their peer-reviewed research in institutional repositories. This is a clear example of market failure. So what is the solution? I hope that at least some of you will be familiar with the BitViews concept. If not, just Google BitViews and you see the articles that I've published in the last couple of years. But very briefly, the BitViews solution consists in three parts. It's a mixture of behavioral economics, what I call the nudge, or blockchain technology, what I refer to as the public ledger, and a little bit of game theory in the form of computational crowd funding and second. So the key problem to be addressed here is the lack of individual incentives for authors to deposit their AAMs, not the version of record, not the published article, the author's approved manuscript. What is a nudge? A nudge is a small reward that brings about a large change in behavior. So what is the nudge offered by BitViews? If this deal, if you author deposit your AAM on any institutional repositories, we will provide you with worldwide aggregated and validated data on online usage of your articles, available on a free public ledger open to everyone, so that everyone can see who has accessed what, where, and once these validated and aggregated data are available to everybody, they can be used to formulate any sorts of metric of non-citation research impact. And people are interested in this. Look at the success of platforms such as Academia or ResearchGate. Now, there is a technological problem, and that is how can millions of data points be collected from thousands of independent institutional repositories in a way that is efficient and cheap? And that's where blockchain comes in. I refer to my articles for details, but in 2 lines, BitViews does to AAM's accounts what Bitcoins does to money transfer. Under Bitcoin, you have an account, And if I transfer 5 Bitcoins onto your account, the blockchain verifies that I have 5 Bitcoins and they're sent to you and not to someone else. And BitViews does exactly the same with AAM's account. Every AAM is an account, and every time someone downloads or views that AAM, the account goes up by 1 view, hence BitViews. In order for BitViews not to be just a good idea, but to be an actual solution, I have to specify who organizes and pays for the development of the required application. BitViews is an open source application, and it's technically not a big challenge, and that's why it is incredibly cheap to develop. All that is required is $400,000 US dollars, and look at how much has been spent on open access initiative in the last 20 years, and compare that also to the your annual subscription budget, and you'll see that 400,000 worldwide is a ridiculously small amount, but still has to be raised somewhere and from someone who is to pay for it. Individual libraries in the global north. So that's where you, university librarian, come in. Now, the problem with a public good like BitViews is what is called the free rider curse, insofar as everybody benefits from the project if successful, but everybody expects everybody else to contribute. What difference do I make? So I may as well save my minute contribution and let everybody else contribute instead. But of course, everybody is as clever as you, and therefore nothing gets done. So game theory comes in and provides at least partial solution to this by what I call conditional crowdfunding. So individual libraries in the global north are supposed to provide the funds, but in a two-stage process that, in a sense, guarantees success and make the funding fair. Stage one. Each individual library reports on the BitViews portal the maximum pledge to support the project. Notice not a cent is exchanged. This is not a legally binding commitment. It is just an expression of interest. We, library of the University X, would be willing to contribute X dollars, provided that everybody else also contributes. Okay. At the end of stage one, the pledging stage, that will last 3 months, all these pledges are added up. Now, if they don't add up to $400,000, which is what is required to develop BitViews, that's the end of it. The target is not reached. No one has paid a cent or a penny. We all go home, and that's the end of it. More optimistically, let us assume that, in fact, if most libraries contribute a minute amount, far in excess of $400,000 will be pledged, but is not required the greater amount. All that is needed is $400,000, and therefore libraries at that stage will be required to pay pro rata. So, for example, if twice as much money is pledged, let's say $800,000 is pledged, each library will be asked to contribute half of what it was prepared to pledge in the first place. And now for the tricky part. The actors of this whole enterprise are individual librarians, individual libraries. And BitViews is fundamentally a decentralized system, not just as an open source technology, but also as an organization. From the technical point of view, BitViews does not need a central clearinghouse to aggregate and disseminate online usage data. The blockchain does it for us, essentially for free. BitViews, as an organization, does not need a central body or a central founder, and it only needs individual librarians to decide individually, unaided by any association, society, consortium, or anything like this, to decide to support the project. That is why this is an appeal to individual university librarians. It's up to you to make this a success. Of course, it's not enough to provide a no-risk, high-reward mechanism for you, university librarian, to take control of your own institutional repositories and actually use them for what they were meant to do, i.e. to produce open access. It is also necessary to provide a guarantee that the whole enterprise is going to be run not for profit. And for that purpose, we have at BitViews going to set up a community interest company, also known as a public benefit company in the US, that is totally not for profit. It is entirely owned and managed by individual libraries and has a board that supervises its activities. The point I want to stress is BitViews has the potential to redress the balance between the academy and publishers, and to achieve a more efficient and fairer system for producing and disseminating peer review research. But it is up to you, university librarians. No one else. No one else is involved in this. It is up to you to decide how you're going to behave in a post-pandemic time. You will have new challenges, change priorities, definitely fewer resources, but it will be up to you whether you want to invest a minute amount of resources in what is an experiment with an incredibly high probability of success. Will you do it? Well, there is a very simple test. For the success of the crowdfunding, it is crucial to get the timing of the 3 months pledging window right. And only you will know, based on your individual requirements, know when that is. I don't know. So I'm asking you, send a one-line email to info@bitviews.org and with 2 possible answers. If you, the question you have to answer is this: when will you personally, your library, no one else, able to pledge support to BitViews? You can answer never, meaning you don't want to support BitViews, fair enough, or specify the month and year when you will be able to move on and pledge. Remember, not commit any resources, but pledge support to the project. And the future of BitViews is in your hands, no one else's. Let me conclude with a very quick call for papers.
if you find the BitViews at all interesting and you want to contribute an article on any related topic, be it scholarly communication, open access, research metrics, blockchain for libraries, please contact me at info@bitviews.org, as I will be a guest editor of a forthcoming issue in Frontiers in Research Metrics and Analytics, which is, of course, open access. May I thank you for listening to me, and if you've got any questions, please do get in touch at info@bitviews.org. Thank you very much, and have a good conference.
So thank you, Manfredi. We don't have any questions, but we'll leave them to the end because we are running a bit late. So next up is Tatiana Sanchez. She's going to present the international visibility of theses and dissertations from the University of Lisbon through the institutional repositories, Gateway for Open Science. Tatiana is an invited assistant professor at Universidade Aberta, librarian and researcher, graduated in literature, postgraduated in documentary sciences, master in education and reading, doctor in education and postdoctor in information science. She's currently head of the documentation division at the Faculty of Psychology and the Education Institute of the University of Lisbon. She is also dedicated to training and research, being the author of several publications at national and international level. She is also a member of the Higher Education Libraries Working Group and a training member in the National Association of Librarians and Archivists in Portugal. So, Tatiana.
Thank you, Susanna. Good morning, everybody. I will share my screen. Please tell me if everything is okay.
Yes.
Maybe now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, just give me a second so I can see this in another way. Okay. I will present you on behalf of my co-authors, Luísa Batista Melo, Silvia Costa Lopes, and Susana Oliveira Henriques. We are, four of us, we are members of the Lisbon University, and we are also all librarians and researchers with this kind of interests. So I will present you this study and why we had interests on doing that, something about institutional repositories and their potential on the international visibility. Then we present a case study centered precisely in the University of Lisbon, and we present some results and conclusions. So, institutional repositories, you also know that they are initiatives that integrate the concept of open science. They enhance circulation of academic and scientific production. And since they have this worldwide impact, they enhance science dissemination and researchers' visibility, and promote access to knowledge. So this study seeks to answer how, in a circumstantial context, will institutional repositories contribute to a wider dissemination of the research, and what also the society will be gain on this, particularly if we look at theses and dissertations. So, and we will try to answer what effects do repositories have on the quality of information available on the web. We wanted to focus this study on theses and dissertations. They are actually the most deposited production in our institution. So they have been allies to promote and safeguard this scientific production by faculty and particularly by students. Institutional repositories are creating and enabling this and fostering scholarly publishing, and so we think, and it's actually visible, that they enhance global visibility. We also understand, and this is compatible with the literature review, that variety, richness, and completeness of the collections deposited are value-added services, because they really add something more than the authors just trying to fulfill their academic objectives without releasing this knowledge through society. So international visibility, it's an important question. And so these are all items that we can think about when we are reflecting on the importance and the potential of institutional repositories. In these institutional contexts, particularly in the University of Lisbon, we know that this is a university, the bigger university in Portugal. Formerly, it was the previous University of Lisbon and the previous Technical University of Lisbon, that in 2013 they have joined. And in fact, we still have 2 repositories in this space. So we gather, organize, and disseminate all the academic scientific production in the university in these 2 platforms. In 2013 also, the RECAP network, the Scientific Open Access Repository of Portugal, has become the instrument to comply the legal deposits of doctoral theses, master dissertations, and other scientific work. So it gathers all nationally all this kind of production. So what are we going to do in our study? We are going to see the number of theses and dissertations from all communities, schools, institutes, and rectory that were collected from the period from 2010 to 2019, and the access type based on this data collected now, just in 2020. And we will see also the usage statistics related to number of views and downloads and home countries of these accesses. So let me present you the results. The number of theses and dissertations archived on these space repositories in this chronologic time are a significant number of more than 30,000. And so we see that are different schools with different dimensions, and this is of course has of course a direct relationship with the number of theses and dissertations defended and deposited. Also, we see here an evolution by year. We see that in the space repositories, University in Lisbon had grown in 2016 particularly. And here we see the results distribution of theses and dissertations by access type, and this is very important. We see that open access is the most frequent choice for this kind of document in this space. And it's really a good thing to tell. We also have closed access for a few of them and embargoed access. And some, we think that these are related with some kind of characteristics for the restricted access, but the open access, it's really the most representative of this. So, with some variations over the years, we see that lowest values occurred between 2016 and 17, and we think that this was due the significant increase of theses and dissertations with restricted or closed access, because in 2015 that was published a legislation that forced the retrospective deposits of all theses and dissertations. So, due to some difficulty in obtaining authorization from the authors, maybe schools and institutions complied with legislation depositing these theses opted by the closed access. So this is an ongoing work. Another result that I want to show you is that the total of downloads and views for theses and dissertations in this period, that is only possible exactly because most of them are in open access. We see that in 10 years, downloads reached almost 20 million views and reached a big number of downloads and reached also a big number of views. So we see a drop, but maybe this is justified by the implementation of robotic access control that make the users' data more reliable, and so the data here are not very coherent. But in the evolution, data from most recent years appear to be more consistent, revealing regular access and new gradual and solid increase in views and downloads of this type of documents. So another thing that we think it's very interesting to show you, it's the top 50 downloads by country. We see a list and the worldwide expansion of the impact of the theses and dissertations. These top 50 countries represent more than 19% of the total downloads and views. And we have to underline that Portugal, Brazil, and the United States are the first three countries with a total of almost 80% of downloads and views. So they are all followed by China. But as we see next chart, we can understand that maybe there is a relation between these results and Portuguese language speaking countries that are here underlined: Portugal, Brazil, Angola, Mozambique, and Cape Verde are Portuguese speaking countries, and they appear in the top 15, both in terms of downloads and views. And this is also consistent with literature review, because it's an obvious correlation demonstrating the influence of blind language of the documents deposited and their access. So Portuguese is the fifth language spoken in all over the world, and very much countries speak Portuguese, and this is very important for our community to value this kind of platforms and insist that this is an important work for librarians and for libraries. So we come to the discussion. We see that this kind of evaluation is a useful process to verify the visibility that scientific production created in higher education institution has, and his impact on all over the world. This was collected concerning the period from 2010 to 2019. This was prepared to be presented the past year, but due to the pandemic conditions, we have to postpone this conference to this year. But we actualized some data, and we have to thank you also to our rectory to the support on obtaining this all this data. And during these 10 years, we see relevant numbers for searchers and for downloads and views. So we point out that language is an important feature, but furthermore, open access, it's really increasing the impact and the worldwide dissemination of scientific production. So, to conclude, we thought that final object of this study to demonstrate how the use of institutional repositories contributes to increasing and fostering scientific research and its visibility. This really promotes access to knowledge, improves the quality of information available on the web, and that, I think, was achieved. But we want to make some recommendations. It's necessary to improve the attention given to auto-archiving, encouraging researchers to participate more actively in the open science movement, namely incentivizing them to put their research reaching a much wider audience through institutional repositories. So studies like this are very important to improve the global perception of open science movements and its impact on all stakeholders, particularly authors, whose scientific production undoubtedly gains exponential visibility and being able in an institutional repository being available. So we are very thankful for your attention. Here it's me and my co-authors. If you want to contact us, please do that, and I'm here to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana. We are reaching the end of our session, but we have a question. So, Tatiana, for you, a question. Can you see it already?
Timeline.
You have a more...
Yes, we have more disaggregated users data, but it's difficult to present it in 15 minutes. We can see in our DSpace repositories the charts or the statistics of the usage for each document. But we think that was much interesting to aggregate the data to give you an overlook of these results.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Manfredi.
I don't know if you have more questions. If you have questions, you can write them down in the Q&A section. If you don't have questions, and because we reached the time, I would like to thank all of the presenters, Tatiana, Katie, Manfredi. Thank you all. I don't see any questions, so I can safely say that everyone is happy with the presentation, doesn't have anything to ask. Yeah, so I think we can safely end the session. Thank you all so much. Thank you all for attending. And
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also,
thank you.
And I hope that the rest of the conference goes just as well as the session for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
Susanna.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.